Good evening. Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
It looks like we have the full Finance Committee. And we've got some from library.
Ryan's here.
Ryan's here? Oh, there he is.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Ryan.
Hi, Ryan.
We got a very busy agenda tonight, so I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We're good to go. I'd say we can start with the library pilot project. If Mary Ann, do you have everybody here that you need to have here, or?
Yeah. So I have, I'm here and Becky is here and Ryan is here, and there are 3 library trustees here that I can see. And that's all I was expecting. And then a couple of friends of the library. So part of the library pilot project grant application is a section about finances. So finances for a project that we don't know how much it's going to cost. And what they ask specifically what they have listed is municipal bonding capacity and debt service, and then donor gift giving. And so, so I'm well aware of the money that we have saved both through private donations and town funds. So what I need from you is the pathways that the town would use to fund the town's portion minus the money we've already raised and the money that we will raise between now and when we start construction.
Okay, so Mary Ann, this is all about fulfilling one of the requirements for the application, for the
Right.
application process,
Right.
and that's which makes sense to me. If you've got a state that's going to be coughing up 3/4 of an investment, they're going to be looking to see that we are capable of handling the other quarter of that investment. So the mission for tonight is, I'm leaving that's a question. We want to
establish that the town of Shutesbury has funding capacity for a potential library.
Okay. And we've got the full Finance Committee here to work through that, as well as Ryan. So how do we want to go through the first steps here as far as working our way through this process? Yeah,
Ryan?
I see you up, your hands up, Becky.
Ryan, do you want me to put together, post a spreadsheet that I shared with you this afternoon, or do you have your own materials?
No, we can work off of yours. I think that makes sense because I think mine might just have a little extra info that just isn't necessarily needed.
Well, go with yours.
All right. I don't know. I think someone would need to give me permission
Oh,
to
yeah.
share.
I'll do that, sorry.
Okay. Hopefully it lets me choose my second screen here. Desktop too. Magic.
Can I ask a quick question just while you're getting set up there? Does the application, is it asking us for us to specify a set of options that the town might pursue if awarded the grant, or are they asking us to sort of set a specific, propose a specific strategy for getting this funded?
I think the application is looking for capacity. So, I don't think that they expect that we'll know the exact path that we would take now, but they want to know. So I think it would be good to like list the town reserves and the town borrowing
Okay.
ability and, you know, that debt capacity budget line thing that we talked about so much at town meeting last year. It might be good to talk about that and explain what that is. You know, so the potential avenues to funding the town's portion.
It sounds almost like what are some sources of
Right,
funding, and they kind of want to hear,
right.
have some sense of kind of what the range of options are. Okay.
Right. And the things that they list, so what they say is potential level of financial support. And then under that municipal bonding capacity and debt service. So those are things that they ask specifically. So.
All right, so in theory, you should now be able to see one of my screens.
Ken, it's
Did you
tiny.
blow it up?
Say that again?
Would you be able to blow it up a little?
Let's see.
You hover down over the bottom
Under
right
view. Click
of
on
the
view.
screen, there should be a plus and minus
Right.
thingamajiggy.
Right.
All right, bear with me. Sorry, I have two screens and that's throwing me off slightly. For now, pause, share, more, pause, recording.
Go down to the bottom right-hand corner, Ryan.
The bottom right hand of my corner doesn't have any like zoom or anything.
It doesn't have a slide.
Oh, you mean on the actual
Right
spreadsheet
there,
one?
yeah,
Yes,
it's right
yes.
there.
Oh, yeah, I can make
So,
that bigger.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
God. I don't know. Can you
Thank
see it? You need it
That's
large?
good. That's real good.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ryan, I just saw one typo. I think the cost estimate should be 4.4 million for the library under K. Or M, sorry. That column, the first number is, yeah,
So that should be 4.4.
yeah.
Thanks.
and I just want to say that
that's
sort of
beautiful.
like any numbers that we're playing around with right now are completely speculation. You know, since we don't, you know, like right now in our library building program, we're proposing a building that's potentially 5,500 square feet. And then with some outdoor spaces of another 900 square feet. But we don't have a cost per square foot estimate yet, and we won't have that until after we're offered the grant. So anyway, it's purely speculation used sort of as a tool to help see how that, you know, how that compares to our town's resources. Okay.
So I'll be completely honest, when I created this, I didn't have the original intention of actually sharing it with people. So if the way my brain made sense of it doesn't necessarily make sense to you, it could be because it often takes me a little bit to remember what I was doing and why I did it the way I did it. So I apologize in advance for that. I believe the portion of the screen you can see right now at the very top, you can see current funds, and we should have our balances for our free cash, our capital stabilization, our stabilization with a little green box totaling those. Directly beneath.
Yeah, Ryan, yeah, just, I don't know about others, but it's right on the borderline of being able to see. I'm just wondering if you could close like the columns, like O and beyond. That might just blow everything up.
Well, I was also going to say, if you go up to the top of the screen, a thing should appear that says view options, and you can do zoom ratio and you can make it more than 100%. So if you go to the top of your screen, on your
Yeah.
left,
The
you should-
Redmond.
The green bar.
no, at
In
the very
Excel
top, no, at
or
the top of this,
on the MacBook itself.
at the top of the Zoom screen. Yeah, don't go to the spreadsheet screen. Go to the top of your laptop itself.
Okay.
Where
And
it
then
says view options.
where it says view option, no, go to
There
the
you go.
top of, it's through Zoom. It's not through your.
Oh.
So go all the way to the top of your laptop and
Okay.
Zoom, view options should appear.
Mm, I do
Melody,
know.
you're talking to everybody who's at the meeting, not to Ryan, right?
Yeah, well, no, I'm talking to Ryan because,
Well, but
yeah,
also, so we can each individually go to view options.
oh,
and
can we
increase-
and do that?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
because I
Oh,
don't.
awesome. Rita,
Yeah,
you're so
and
smart.
so Ryan, now if you, so I've gone to view options and made it bigger, and I made it 100, and I
Mhm.
can see it a lot better. And
Okay.
if you, so now what I see is the left side of your, or the right side. And if you, anyway, it's fine, because I'm just gonna ask you to email this to me tomorrow. And if you
Okay.
could just explain it to me. So you started to say that it lists the free cash and the stabilization and the capital stabilization.
Yeah, so I have those three main funds listed with balances there. And then beneath that, I did list library stabilization, library capital building, and Friends of the Library, was shared with me as the estimated, just so I just have an idea as to what's in those. That kind of just gave me the, I guess, the background in trying to think of how we could possibly fund the project. I don't know how, I have to, in order for me to share it with you, I have this like 48-inch monitor. So I have it like really zoomed disproportionately, and it's almost kind of hard for me to see. And I can't tell how you can see it on yours, so I apologize. But in column L, M, and N, you can see I'm estimating the total cost of the project at 4.4 million. The town's covering 25% of that, plus rolling in the $300,000 in what's estimated of ineligible costs for reimbursement. And then I took out what I believe to be an estimated $600,000 being paid for that project out of like library funds, funds that have been raised, et cetera. So that leaves the town with a balance that we need to pay of some sorts in some capacity of $800,000 approximately. So am I correct in those assumptions that you feel comfortable with that?
Mary Ann?
I think this is, it's a good ballpark exercise. And again, I'm not committing to a project cost for a project that we haven't gotten a cost estimate for yet. So,
Okay.
but while you talk, I'm gonna, we just don't, the Board of Library Commissioners is going to be responsible for having a professional cost estimate done based on square footage. So, and then estimating those ineligible costs. So, but I think this is a good ballpark to sort of do this exercise with.
Okay. So using that information, so like I said, what we had for balances in the free cash, capital stabilization, et cetera, then having this estimation on the library project and what I think it will end up costing the town. At the moment, I'm estimating $800,000. I don't know if you can see where I'm highlighting here, but this is where I'm estimating money should probably come from. And you'll notice the way I actually have it being funded right now is in the spending column here. I have $800,000 in actual cash coming out, and all of that would be for the library project. This borrow of 983,000 is what I'm estimating we should do for some other projects that I have up in this corner here that I know we have needs for in the near future. So it's not necessarily related to the library, but how I've come up with the idea of using $500,000 from free cash and $300 from capital stabilization is with the expectation that we would need to borrow around 983,000 to fund some of these additional projects that we have. So that's my weird roadmap on this spreadsheet here.
But Ryan,
Yeah.
I think you have the 800,000 for the library included in that borrowing, right? Is that intentional?
No.
No, I do not.
It's right here.
So if you look, can you see this section that I'm highlighting?
Yes.
It's
I see
line
the
5.
800,000 on row 5.
Yeah, and then so see, I have minus HVAC and library because I'm
Okay.
expecting that we can
Got
pay for these two in a separate form. So that would
Got
leave me with 983.
Got
All right, that's what I mean. Like I wouldn't have done it like this if I planned on showing because it
No,
may.
that's
it just
okay,
makes
as long
sense
as
to
we
me.
understand.
So that's just my interpretation of what I'm estimating and where money could come from. Obviously, I'm really just kind of here to help Marianne move forward with their application and then hear the thought process from the finance committee. We don't actually need to initiate a borrowing at the moment or anything like that, but I think it's important that we talk about it early on. We obviously, for purpose of application, have funding available for the project, but having an idea, at least in the forefront of this dialogue, as to where we would like to see it come from is important. So I'm really just kind of here to listen for some thoughts.
Yeah, I see AJ's hand. It's hard for me to see hands and see I can only see so many people and be able to see your spreadsheet.
Jim, can
So-
I just address one piece that I don't see here?
Okay, sure.
The debt capacity money that is currently in the budget is $112,695. And the other piece about borrowing that Ryan has is he has a debt schedule. Ryan, did you want me to share that or can you share that? I can share it if you want.
So
but-
that 112,000, that's mostly, that's culvert? Is that the culvert project?
Okay. No, that currently, the debt capacity that we have for over 12 years built into the budget is funds that switch between funding borrowing that we do, like when we bought the fire truck, you didn't see the $112,000 in the annual budget. But when we paid off that debt, the 112,000 came back in the budget and we transferred to capital stabilization so that we help, no matter what, the debt capacity is either building our reserves or paying for our debt. So to our surprise, when Ryan asked for the debt capacity, the debt schedule for $800,000 with estimated interest rates of 3.75, the amount for the first year, the highest year, because it declines, came in at $110,000. So that's another path the town already has built into the budget, similar to reserves. If we were to go out for a borrowing, we could fund that borrowing from the current amount of debt capacity we have in the budget. Brian, do you want me to put up that schedule? Would you
Yeah,
mind?
if you, I'm trying to find it. I'm on I was doing a different project before, so I'm on a different laptop, so it's not
Okay.
actually saved on this
Becky, there's-
computer, but it's in my
I
email.
can do that. I have it.
There's one caveat to that, right, Becky? Just one minor caveat to that.
Sure, please add.
We did decide that we were going to use we were going to issue debt for the culvert. So some of that 112 capacity is going to be absorbed. It's not, obviously not the full extent, but we do need to determine to what extent that the 112 will be. decreased.
Correct. Yeah, because we've already committed to that being the situation. And Ryan has the debt schedule.
There it is.
This is what an $800,000 10-year note would look like at the moment with where rates are. Of course,
Can
you'd
you
have to
blow
keep
it?
in mind that
Oh, I
rate
guess we can.
at any time.
I can't blow it up. I tried it.
Yeah.
There's two people with raised hands. I think Kate Sell and Susie Mosier, Jim.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, again, it's hard for me to see both, all the people that are attending as well as the presentation. So, yeah. Yeah, Kate and then Susie.
There's also a regular allocation in the budget for the new library, which is $25,000. I'm not sure how we should think about that as we build a new library, but it seems like it's neutral, revenue neutral at this point.
Unfortunately, part of the decision-making at annual town meeting last year funded that through free cash. It is no longer in the budget.
Gotcha, thank you.
Okay, I see Susie and then AJ, and I guess I can't see if anybody does use the reactions and the hand raising for actions, then I can see.
George
I
is
can see
raising
them.
his hand.
And another option is, this is a 10-year note. A library is an investment that lasts much longer, and witness our 100-year library. So it could be a wise idea to run the note for 20 or 30 years instead of 10. It would pay more in interest, but it would also spread the payments over people that'll move into the town and also enjoy the library.
If I could just, in some form of response to that, if we did want to go out further, it would be recommended that we actually increase the amount. 10 years is the maximum that was recommended that we go out for the $800,000 amount. Because I originally wanted to go out to at least 15 for the quote, and they didn't think that it would be picked up by banks.
I guess I don't understand what, so they would want to borrow more than 800, they would want a loan that was for more than 800,000?
Yeah, because they would, and the offset is that the bank ends up profiting more, and it's such a larger amount so that you have to go out for a longer period of time. But as the amount shrinks, the length of term that they're willing to go out isn't as long.
Okay, AJ.
Yeah, so just a few questions for Ryan. In the spreadsheet that we were looking at earlier, you proposed funding our portion of the project entirely through capital stabilization and stabilization accounts. And then you specified that you were, under this model, we would be going out for borrowing of about $1 million for other projects. And so the question I had was just, is there a particular rationale for assigning some of the projects to be funded through debt service and then having the library funded through the stabilization accounts? Was there some kind of rationale for making those decisions?
The only real, to be honest, if you felt like we should do it in an opposite way, I could easily probably be persuaded to do that. The rationale that I utilized behind that is that the majority of those projects, although I have listed here as FY23, there is the possibility that some of them may push out further to like FY24. So I liked the idea of having kind of like a rolling debt taking place here. So taking this, we're not going to take the full $900,000 to $800,000 all on at once, most likely in the borrowing scenario that I presented here. Whereas we would then use the cash in a lump sum almost all at once of around $800,000. And then probably over a couple of years, we would see maybe 2 or even 3 years, we would see borrowing going on the books upwards of 900. It'll kind of be like an easy way to bring it on board for the taxpayers.
I see. And is there any reason, and this might be a question for Mary Ann then, is there any thought that the MBLC might have a favorable view of one of these strategies over the other, or it doesn't matter to them as long as the town can demonstrate that it has capacity for either?
I think they just want to see that the town has capacity, and they don't, you know, they don't want to tell us how to do things.
Right.
They want us to demonstrate that we're able to do things. So.
And that's really what our mission is tonight, Mary Ann, is to provide the answer to that point you just raised.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Bob.
Yeah, I just want to ask the HVAC line and the estimates over on the left. My understanding is that we're pretty certain that that's going to be paid for by federal or state money. So we don't have to look at that as a financial obligation for the town. I think that's what Becky told us at the last meeting. And so Ryan, you should know that we expect that the federal grant program will pick up the tab for that item.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I do have that noted in here. Again, it's just kind of the way I have it done. you can see if you look at the total, this 1.9 represents all of these. But I did take the HVAC and the library out, believing that they'd be funded in different capacities so that I could have a real better understanding as to what debt I have coming up in the future. I probably, like, if I knew I was going to share it, I probably would have colored it differently or something, so it really stood out, but I'm sorry.
The other comment I'd like to make is that it seems very clear that we have the capacity, one way or the other, to do this. I think that if we provide the state with the information that you see here, that they would see that that's certifiable. And we would have these discussions about the options down the road somewhere. Isn't that true
Right.
about the options?
Yeah, I think maybe that's, I think maybe AJ referred to a proposed, Ryan proposed, but these are just some scenarios.
Just options, yeah.
Yeah, these are just scenarios, right? There's a lot of different ways we can ultimately do this with a range of borrowing and reserves.
Yeah, of course. I
Right.
I really threw these in here so that if I came tonight and you had questions on options, that there would at least be something in writing and it wasn't, well, we have the money. What else would you like from me? I just felt I should have at least a little something down just in case. You never know what you're going to be asked.
Good.
I appreciate the detail that you went into thinking about all of our different towns' needs, Ryan.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, AJ, is your hand up?
Oh, no.
All right, you gotta undo that.
Drop it. Yep.
I do think, is it Jim maybe? I think.
Yeah, Jim.
Raised.
Yeah, anybody, if you do if you go to reactions and click on the hand raise, then I can see those.
Jim's
Everybody have
clapping.
that? Okay, clapping. Thank you, Jim.
Oh, is that what it is? I got the wrong.
There's another hand. There's another hand there. But we
Oh,
know.
okay, I got it. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim, go ahead.
All right, Ryan, this is, you're talking about borrowing money using the State House Note Program. In other words, we're borrowing it through state organized facilities, and we can borrow up to $1 million from them, can't we, without a lot of additional hassle or trouble? Isn't the upper limit about $1 million?
I believe you're correct, but I wouldn't want to be quoted on that. I would have to verify it.
Okay, but this is through the State House Note Program.
Yes.
As opposed to going out to bond, which is something we're not doing.
Correct. That's what I'm representing with the State House note. Yes.
Yeah.
George.
Well, I think Bob and Jim, you came to the conclusion that I was really wanting to raise, but I do want to say that in answer to Mary Ann's question, if we want a positive spin on this when the library building people are looking at this, let's lay out all the options. Number one, we have cash reserves in excess of what our mandated reserves are. And we also have debt service capacity to the extent of the 112 less whatever the culvert is. And we can use some of that excess cash to ensure that whatever borrowing we do remains within that capacity. And then I think the third thing, and I just want to throw everything at them so that we know that they know that we have more than one option, and that is there is always a debt exclusion override. And I think we should at least let them know that we also have the option to add a debt exclusion override. So that when they look at our application, they'll see that there is more than one option for us. And of course, the caveat on that, the footnote is Shutesbury, once these numbers come into focus, will do the analysis to determine what is the best path for our town. So I'm just trying to help Mary Ann with some language there. And that's the way I think we should approach the response.
I guess I'm not sure, George, how does a debt exclusion override show our current capability?
Well, it's just
and
the
then
law
I guess-
allows us to do it.
I'm
The
still,
law allows us to do that. The law allows us to raise funds through a debt exclusion
Yeah.
override. So it's just
Yeah.
showing that we have an additional option. So I just think the more options we show them, the more confident they're going to be in our ability to raise the funds.
yeah, because I think what they're looking for here is our ability right now. What is our ability right now to commit to the 25% of the project that we would.
Well,
need to
that's
be
part of
committed
it.
to. Yeah.
That's part of our ability.
Yeah, and I think
We're
that
able to
the
do that.
override isn't necessarily, that's not something that we have here right now. We do have the ability to borrow right now. We do have these cash reserves.
This
Right
is an
now.
this is an illustration of our options, and this is an illustration bringing in other projects into perspective. But conceptually answering the question is we can apply some cash, we can borrow within the operating budget, and we can use cash to make sure we can do that. Or another option is we could seek a debt exclusion override. That actually is consistent with what Susie was saying earlier about, well, it's not, because I guess we wouldn't be able to borrow beyond 10 years anyways. But anyways, it's just, to me, I'm just suggesting this because to me, having a lot of options just makes it look more financially viable from the state's point of view. I just want to throw everything in the kitchen sink at them. I don't think we would recommend that as a finance committee. I don't think that it would be prudent to do that given all the capacity we have, but I do think it's an option, and it just looks better to have more options in the response.
Yeah, Jim.
Well, where does this $4.4 million figure actually come from? It seems to me this is a kind of a light number for all of what I've heard about what this library is really going to cost in the end of things. I mean, I think we're kind of lowballing this, aren't we?
Actually, I went up 400,000 from what I originally was told by the MBLC.
And it's 4.7, not 4.4, because we've got 300 of ineligible costs to add to that 4.4.
But I increased it, what I originally heard, by 10%, Jim.
Boy, still seems like this is going to cost us an awful lot more if it hasn't. Just think of all the money we've spent up to this time on test and test results and drillings and God knows what else. I just think we're going to need a lot more money than this.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose this is all hypothetical and nobody really knows much of anything at this point, but I just think it seems the figure doesn't seem to be realistic to me.
Yeah, Mary Ann, and then Susie.
Jim, can I ask you how much we've spent on test results and drilling?
Well, actually, that was something I was going to ask Becky Torres. I wanted to have an accounting of what we've spent on OTO and so far, which that report that you had on your site was a very elaborate report, and I'm sure that cost us a bundle. And then, of course, we've had all the cleanup that's been taking place. I think we ought to know what.
So, Jim, I think you're
Not tonight.
speculating, and the Friends of the Library paid for most of the testing, and they paid $13,000. And then another $3,000 was paid out of the library state aid account. So a total of $16,000 for all of that testing. The cleanup, the demolition of the building and the cleanup was different. And then Jim, you also said that you've heard an awful lot about how much this project is going to cost. And so the library has been very clear that, first of all, this week we have finalized the square footage projections, and they're just projections. And we have been very clear that we can't do an estimate until we are offered the grant, and that the Board of Library Commissioners is going to provide a professional cost estimate. So, so I haven't actually heard any vetted cost estimates for this project. And
I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
want to interrupt. This is not what this meeting is for.
Yeah, well,
If Jim wants to do some other talking, I don't feel like that's our meeting. And so I'd like to stick to, do we have the capacity? He may question what capacity we're looking for. I think we've shown what capacities we have here, and I want to keep the meeting on the topic.
yeah, and I was just going to say this sort of along the same lines. Let's keep in mind, what is the mission here tonight? And the mission is to meet the needs of an MBLC requirement for our proposal. And if 4.4 million is what they see as part of our proposal and the way we've gone through this exercise, it's really up to them, but allow them to challenge us. They probably know as well as anybody what the cost of a library is, the MBLC. So, you know, if it's going to be, I guess, again, let's keep the mission and let's keep the mission for what we're trying to accomplish tonight in mind. And this is to present something to the MBLC to meet the obligations for our application. And again, I think they know as well as anybody what whether 4.4 million sounds reasonable or not. Somebody else had a hand up, I think. No?
I took it down.
You took it down. Okay. I wasn't seeing things.
Mary Ann, do you think you have what you need from this
do.
discussion and the spreadsheet? Yeah.
I do. I think, you know, George has, you know, George laid it out clearly that we have the capacity to use cash up to a certain amount. Or we could possibly borrow within the debt service in the budget already. Or if we need more than is available through that debt service line, we could use some cash and the debt service. So a combination of cash and borrowing. And then if, you know, if circumstances warrant it, we could always have a debt excluded override to fund the project. And, you know, and I can work with Becky and Ryan to get the real numbers so that we can illustrate our town's, you know, financial picture. So thank you so much.
Great.
Did I explain that all right, George? What, did I repeat what you said? Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
That sounded perfect.
Yes.
You must have been here before. Oops.
Let's hope.
Thanks,
it's not
Ryan, for
the
putting
case.
this together.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Happy to help. I will, unless there's any other questions on this, I will.
Well, the only question I have, Ryan, is be ready to do it again. I hope you'll be ready to do this as we get better numbers.
I know, I better get better at making prettier spreadsheets. so
Well,
that
you'll
everyone
have time
understands
to
them.
get ready for us.
Thank you for having me tonight. If any questions pop up, you all have my email address.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Ryan. Really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thanks. Thanks,
You're
Ryan. And Mary Ann, you're pretty much have everything you need for your requirements.
I do. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay.
All righty.
All right, thanks. All right. We go through minutes, review minutes from our last meeting, from our November 3rd meeting.
Yeah, sorry for the mix-up, getting them late.
Anybody have any changes?
Not me.
I had AJ, one question on
Yeah.
item 2.
Yep.
F.
Yep.
In the last sentence, it says, "We are clarifying with the contractor." I guess, who's we? Is that,
I guess Becky, right?
okay,
For the town.
right. And one other thing regarding 2 that I have, you talked about the CARES Act in A, and that we close up 154,000.
Yep.
But we also talked about ARPA, and we got the first half.
Yeah.
So should we add that in there, maybe as a separate letter
Yeah.
regarding
Maybe right
ARPA? And
So, so town has received half of our ARPA allocation.
yeah, exactly.
Does anybody have the number?
Yeah, 262,000 is half.
Okay. Okay, I just added that.
I have another edit
Okay, go ahead.
on 5. You said that the certified free cash is higher than we expected.
Yep.
On our report that we sent, that we brought to town meeting, we had
Mhm.
projected that the free cash, I don't know where my math is. So I believe that this free cash certified is 497,000 more.
Okay.
I don't think you read the chart right, Susie.
I'm looking at the report that we sent out to town meeting. Oh, here it is. And
Oh,
I
okay.
have number 7 says free cash if all warrant articles pass would be 697.
That was prior to an estimate.
Gotta go down 2 lines, Susie.
Yeah, if you check the report we were using, then you added 90,000 and come out at 786,584. So it's a $90,000 difference from what you put, from what you said.
Okay,
So I'm looking at
So it
the
should be
reserve sheet that
400,000.
we did.
So we would have gotten 407,000 more than we anticipated.
407.
All right, so I don't know where I heard the 250,000 number, but it sounds like that needs to be updated.
I probably just threw that out because I hadn't done the
Okay.
math.
All right, so should I just say approximately 400,000 more than anticipated?
Just under 400,000.
Okay.
It's
right.
actually 380 something.
I got 384, Becky.
Yeah, 384.
Okay, we'll use that number.
Well,
All
and
right,
that's
I'll put that in.
I'd have to double check.
that's not from the minutes. That's probably not a number we used for purposes of the minutes, but, and we do have a agenda item tonight to go through that free cash, right? That will address and clear. We'll address that.
So- All right, so for the purpose of the minutes, I'm just going to add one of those bracketed notes that the actual,
That's good.
the actual amount is approximately 380,000 more than anticipated.
Perfect.
Yep. Bob,
On number 4 on the school choice issue, AJ,
Yeah,
I just want, I said that, and I think it should be clear in the minutes that I believe that the school choice fund should be used to support the budget. That's the main point that I tried. I mean, we spoke a lot about it, but I think that's important in the minutes because that's really what I've been trying to articulate to this committee.
I just added that. I'm just adding it to the same D bullet, or no, just as an additional sentence.
Susie?
Oh, sorry. Nope, I gotta take my hand down.
Okay. Any
I make
other?
I make a motion, we approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
George?
Arvanitis, aye.
Archer abstain, I wasn't present.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye.
We mastered the alphabet, haven't we?
We know our rules.
Okay, free cash update. Our last meeting, we talked about getting into some of the details. Last meeting, Becky confirmed that we're at 1.173 million in free cash. And then an action was to go through the details on how that compares with what we originally budgeted for free cash and what are the differences that contribute to the increase. So Becky, are you good to go through that?
And let me see if okay, so basically I can talk you through this, but what I need to do is email everyone the final. Did everyone get the final of the year that I just got from
No,
the accountant? I don't think I got that out yet. And so I'm gonna email that out so you can review it on your own. But basically, when you look at the balance of our budgeted expenses and what we actually spent, there was a balance of $295,000 remaining, which is higher than normal. We had projected that the health insurance was going to end up really tight. We had a balance of almost $40,000. I think we had some change in disposition of people that, stopped taking insurance instead of adding insurance at the end of the year. So that's one piece we had. So basically, that's all underspending that I can, and I'll send out the report for the final of the year. I'm going
But then
to.
the report, will that only show the one number, the free cash number? Or is it going to show the reasons, the reasons for the difference?
Okay, so what I'm talking about is our normal expense report, Jim.
Yeah,
So if you look at where we underspent,
Yeah.
the balance for this year, for everything, the total of underspent items is almost $300,000, which is much higher than normal. We had underspending in even things like our select board secretary because of COVID. She did not put in as many hours because she was working from home. We had the reserve fund balance was about $27,000. The independent audit is always a carry forward, so we should be subtracting that. But basically, almost 300,000 of underspent funds. And I think some of it had to do with COVID. We had, like Ellen's expenses were lower. She didn't go to the conferences that she normally goes to. So people were constrained. We had, so if we take that 300 and take out the carryovers, it's about $250,000. And then the unusual thing, also the second unusual thing this year is we had additional revenue because the $45,000 that we get from Atkins Reservoir did not come in time during FY21. So we had two payments that hit in FY22. That was, it had nothing, I didn't have a way to estimate that. I didn't know about that timing back when we were working on these. So there were.
Those are the funds that come from Amherst to Shutesbury? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a pilot payment for the reservoir. And then we move through general government. The registrar expenses were lower this year because we didn't, I can't explain it, but they were almost half as much. And I think partly the policy changed, and maybe we can change that. It was the expenses that were half as much this year. And it's because we had fewer elections. We didn't last year. No, Susie, we did have elections last year, but for some reason, the expense, I know what it was. They were offset by the CARES money. So a lot of things that we applied CARES money to became underspent items in our budget and actually have added to the free cash.
That's awesome.
We had tax title activity that was limited, so that's also a carryover, so that'll help us next year. We had, we were under in heating, but we were over in electric, like we all know. Another major change caused by COVID was the town newsletter has moved to electronic. And when we did that, the cost of making that transition, when Janice Gray invested a lot of time, was also a COVID expense. So we are looking at an additional $3,000 this year that we didn't anticipate. The police chief's salary line, we had almost $20,000 left. Police wages, $19,000 left. And the fire department call line had almost $5,000 left. Both departments were operating under limited response that was advised statewide by the chief organizations to keep people from spreading and getting sick. The elementary school returned $14,000. We got $4,200 for the elementary transportation, which we all know is still a source of frustration on that bus contract. But it's still money coming back. We had $38,000 come back in public works, minus the Lot 030 cleanup carryover that was used almost entirely to clean up Lot 032. So that's still another $25,000 that came back because we had a break on snow removal. So as we go through it, and then the last big item was the health insurance where I had started. So it was a very unusual year, and it was precipitated by a lot of the savings were precipitated by COVID, but other events that the town had, like the chief leaving early, was 20 grand. So it was an unusual year that way. And our COVID, the monies that we spent offset a lot of it. And I'm sorry, and I will send out to you guys, if I can find it, I will send what she forwarded to me. Any other questions?
There's Bob and then Jim.
Okay.
Bob, unmute.
I don't know if any of you watched the tape from the ATFP, whatever, about the budgeting process, the part 3 of this presentation that they made. I sent it along to you today, so that's probably kind of late. But it was interesting listening to one of the experts, the man who's the author of the Finance Committee handbook for that organization, talking about all these different issues. As revenue was one of his big things. But he talked about free cash, and he explained the kind of options that towns in the Commonwealth, the approaches that different towns have to that issue. And one of the things he pointed out, which is the kind of definition of free cash, is what's underspent in the budget goes into free cash. That's what the definition of free cash is. And what he does in his town, which is the town of Arlington, I guess, is they roll back 50% of it to support the budget if they have a good year. And I think that's a pretty good idea, because after all, we taxed based on certain assumptions last year. Those assumptions were calculated, with good faith, but we ended up having to spend less money than we thought. So why can't we give the taxpayer a little break this year by taking some of that money and applying it to our budget for FY23? I think that's something we should think about here on the Finance Committee. Also, I highly recommend that members watch that very informative tape. And I did send the bill to the Finance Committee and to Becky. And so I hope, we're kind of cheating by sharing that, but we should at least pay for my participation in it.
Yeah. Jim.
Yeah, Becky, is all of the CARES Act money used up? I thought there was about 20,000 still left over as of, I don't know, a few months ago or something like that. Did we actually consume all of our allocation?
Yes.
Good.
I don't have a final reconciliation from them. That won't happen until January, but
Okay.
we spent, I made sure that we spent the funds that we had on hand. They are counting, their numbers were coming in higher than mine, so I'm not, which is kind of backwards. But from what my calculations, we spent it all. We've utilized the last little bit of money that we had to put together. We bought the equipment to enable us to do hybrid meetings in the future. So we've used half of the equipment, the large smart television, which when it's hooked up with an HDMI cable to a laptop, along with another microphone, has vastly improved our ability to hear during a meeting. And we've also purchased an owl that will enable it's a smart speaker that turns, and it has a microphone, a speaker, and I can't remember the third part, but it enhances our ability in a conference call situation, which is what we will have to do. If the finance committee is meeting in the building, we still need to provide Zoom capacity. So we will be using this new equipment to do that.
Yeah, just to help us, keep us on track and stay somewhat efficient. We covered this topic last meeting. So just, again, I don't know if we have to rehash.
Sorry for repeating.
Yeah, but I know you were asked the question. So to try to keep us, all of us, let's not rehash if at all possible. We've got a pretty tight agenda. Bob.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, if I don't know if this is the right place to do it, but I'd like to ask a question from Steve, basically related to this idea of the CARES Act and also the school budget. Maybe Steve can answer it. I was talking to John Trickey recently, and he said that this Amherst, Pelham is in the Amherst K through 6 system, and they received the payment of $200,000+ from the school, from that particular organization, because of the money saved or acquired through CARES. That was the savings that was then transferred as a payment to the town of Pelham this year. So did we get that kind of money from CARES, and do we have any $14,000 versus 200? It seems to be a pretty good gap. I wonder what if any.
I'm sorry, Bob, I couldn't follow what you were saying. Could you say again, what did Pelham do?
Pelham received a check from Doug Slaughter because their elementary school is connected to the Amherst system. So they're, unlike us who were in Union 28, they're connected to Amherst, and they received a payment from Amherst or from their district of $200,000+ because of the savings from the CARES Act that had been applied through the school year last year. So they had that kind of surplus in their budget. So they returned $200,000 to Pelham. And so they're using that to support the school budget this year.
I never heard of such a thing. I don't know why it happened, but I will inquire.
Yeah, I'm just asking whether we had anything like that. Maybe Steve would know that.
But to be clear, that was not from the regional school district. That was from the Amherst, the elementary school district, right?
Elementary.
Amherst Pelham Elementary.
Amherst Pelham has their own elementary.
Yeah, of
system
course.
like ours, Yeah.
Susie.
I know that Union 28 did use CARES Act money in their budget. I don't know what political or what financial arrangement Amherst and Pelham have, if that's the same or different from Union 28. And in their budget, you can see where they did use CARES Act. So I don't anticipate us getting a check from a town. But I will ask tomorrow tomorrow there's a school committee meeting.
That'd be great. Thank you, Susie.
Okay, anything else regarding free cash, the free cash topic? Or cash reserves? I guess again, the message here is we ended up about just under $400,000 higher in cash reserves than what we had planned during the budget process. But we're still about $200,000 under the prior year. So I think from our perspective here as a finance committee, it's really about with this new information as we go forward with regards to capital investments, as far as projects, whatnot, just to keep this in mind that we're at a roughly a $400,000 higher level than what we expected going into the fiscal year. So I guess a nice problem to worry about.
Becky, you'll be able to send us the final expense report for fiscal 21.
I was able to send it by not answering your question right away.
Thank you.
All right. Next topic, prep for town meeting. Regional school. Becky, you sent us one item that gives us a little detail of what the expectations are for this meeting. Is the meeting confirmed for this Saturday?
Oh, yeah, they're having a meeting.
Okay.
Is it in person or is it virtual? Did that get answered? I know somebody asked, but I didn't hear the answer.
Is Steve here?
Yes. He's over here.
Steve is here, but he's on mute.
Steve, can you answer that question?
I didn't hear the question. I was the other side of the room.
Is the Four Towns meeting on Saturday in person or virtual?
It is virtual.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is it a 9 o'clock meeting?
I think I just received the links for that yesterday.
Good, please forward them.
Yeah,
And
because I asked for the agenda and I still never, he emailed me, was that Monday or Tuesday, and said he would send it. I think he emailed me Monday, he'd send it on Tuesday, and I never got it.
Becky, do we need that meeting posted?
Yeah,
Better hurry up, eh?
as soon as I can get out of this meeting.
As soon as you get out of this meeting, you can schedule some more meetings.
Yep.
All right.
So
Mr. Cecil,
was his prompt sent instead of an agenda?
No, because he told me he was sending both things.
Oh, okay.
Because I asked him on Friday, and on Monday he told me that I should get it tomorrow.
Mhm.
No, that I get it later that on Monday, and then he said on Tuesday, he was sending out some prep questions for the towns to think about.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like just, I'm glad we have Rita and Steve here because we didn't have our usual confab where we discussed town policy and strategy for this meeting. And I think that, I think we should maybe briefly try to do something like that here. I put my 2 cents in. I think that we've all agreed in the past to have a policy to go towards statutory as our goal. I don't see any reason why that should change personally. And I do think that we're very close. We were patient because we were told that we could disrupt the budgeting process for other towns if we moved too quickly. We did accept those terms and we did move steadily, but and not too quickly in that direction. I think we're almost there. I think we could just make a statement as a town that we want to go full statutory before we lose our capacity to benefit from it, which might very well happen. Now, again, I was talking to John Trickey. They're building 36 units of affordable housing, which is going to change their place. You know, it's a zero-sum game. They're going to benefit in terms of the statutory method greatly by having people that are qualified to live in that housing move into their town. So I think we should be aware that we've been very patient, but I personally think we should say we'd like to go full statutory this year.
AJ, and then George.
So just, it seems to me that the second prompt that we're supposed to formulate a response to is what is our town's preferred assessment method and why. So I think, for our discussion tonight, I think we should like actually propose a set of like bullet points that respond to that question and the other one about financial concerns. But I think just to respond to Bob, I think it's, I think it is fair to say that there's consensus, as close to we ever get to consensus last year around the statutory approach being the fairest and most equitable method. So I don't think there's any, at least I haven't heard anybody take a different position. So I think assuming that that's kind of where we all still stand, I jotted down a few notes about like the why, answering the why of why we think that's the best method. Would it be okay if I just read a couple of them and you guys could respond? So justification one is that, the Commonwealth created the statutory method as the fairest, most equitable method of allocating assessments for member towns. So I think that's the whole reason it exists, is it reflects the state's answer to that question of what is the fairest and most equitable method. I think bullet point 2 I wrote was that the method itself reflects a balance of per pupil and wealth-based factors are sort of wrapped up into the statutory method, which makes it a kind of compromise in and of itself, right? It's not one or the other, it's a bit of both. Third bullet is that a significant, I don't know the exact number, I know we've discussed it in the past, but a significant majority of regional districts throughout the state utilize the statutory method as opposed to some alternative method. Fourth bullet, Shutesbury recognizes that the statutory method can result in significant changes in member town allocations from one year to the next, which is why we've advocated for the 5-year rolling average minimum contribution method. So that method that we've supported historically is, produces a more stable, predictable distribution from one year to the next. So I thought those were, at least when I was sitting down to think about our previous discussions about this issue, those seem to be the 4 kind of big sort of explanations for our position. So I don't know if anybody has other ones or concerns about any of those.
Sounds like a good start. Jim?
Are we going to see any figures, a spreadsheet on what this year's calculations are like? Because after all, it's good to talk theory, but people really want to see numbers. I mean, the towns are going to want to see numbers, the individual towns. So are we going to have that information this Saturday or not?
No,
Oh.
I don't think so.
See.
Steve, do you know?
No, this one's supposed to be about the method and the history for people that don't know it. And then the next one would be getting into the numbers.
Well, typically they do show
And
us.
I did just look up the agenda for the meeting. It's 9 o'clock virtual, and other than it says procedural, but there's nothing else on the agenda.
Nothing else other than talking
Other than
about,
it starts, it's virtual and it starts at 9. That is the agenda.
that's the agenda. Okay. Now according to the note that Becky sent us a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, it sounded like the last committee meeting, school committee meeting, there was going to be discussion about putting together an agenda for Saturday. Did that happen, Steve? Or?
All that happened was we approved that PowerPoint that I think Becky sent to everybody.
Just the bullets with the bullets, the prompts.
No.
Yes,
No,
yes, and
Steve, I
that's,
couldn't, if you
that-
could, is that the thing on board docs? I couldn't get it out either.
Oh, so there's a PowerPoint.
yes, that's the thing on board docs that I couldn't get out. I thought Allison had sent to you, but you couldn't get it out either?
No,
Is
it
that a
had to link to
presentation?
another agenda and
All right, I'm gonna go try and pull that power.
You just went to, oh, there you go. So
I'll try and send that now. I'll go,
Is that-
I'll be back.
thank you very much.
is that the presentation for that will be used for the basis
It
for
might,
Saturday's
it might
meeting?
be, I couldn't open it, so I couldn't figure it out.
Can you forward it, Becky, and see if we can open it?
I think Steve's getting it now.
He's working on it.
Yeah, I'm having trouble just getting in, the board docs is like, I'm not figuring out how to download stuff.
Yeah, the board docs, you need to have a login.
Okay, so, but I'm messing around. There's a budget basics fact sheet. Is that it?
Yes,
Okay. All right, I can get that out right now.
Is it a PowerPoint, Becky?
It's a PD, what I'm looking at is a PDF.
yeah, you
Susie,
may
did-
have gotten a better thing because Allison sent it to you and she controls the board.
Okay. Okay. One
Susie and
second.
George have their hands up. Maybe you guys want to comment while they're digging up this document?
Yeah, I would like to add, so AJ worked up 4 points and I have some other points. One, on Saturday, I think it's important that we not go in there just advocating, but we go in there to listen. One of the issues we have is that Amherst's town council members did not have enough information and just had opinions. And part of this step for this November 20th meeting is to get information and to listen. And I think we need to model that as well as learn something from our listening. A factor that matters to me is the impact of moving to statutory as a process, what impact it might have on the school's budget. We know they made some cuts last year, they made some cuts the previous year, and the rate of change in the assessment method, to me, it matters what kind of impact it has on the budget. Another factor that drives the impact is how the change in statutory affects different individual towns. And we've all along said that we should make changes, but not in a way that impacts any one town particularly severely. So in some ways, we're going to be talking theoretically, but in another way, we need to watch for the numbers to come out and see if any one town is particularly affected. So those are my 3 additional points.
George,
Well, I just want to remind everybody that there was another bullet item before the assessment method that we do need to review and talk about. But it's my recollection, every one of these meetings I've ever been to, that we have 2 meetings a year at least. In the first one, there is always a presentation of the draft of the budget, where we are at this point, and there usually are assessment methods laid out for us. I'd be surprised if that wasn't the case this year. And that's usually what everybody's looking at when we have these conversations. I do agree with what, you don't think that's the case this year, Becky?
I don't, because I think they listened, they were going down the same path that your committee was going down in anticipating what would happen during the assessment. They have taken the advice and they are trying to have an educational session. And if you see if that email that finally got the form out on, that budget basics is a process of walking through and really trying to talk to all of the different towns and get their situations on the table before they, before they carve out the Amherst space budget and do all the other work. I think they really are attempting to do what you guys asked.
So all right, so this is definitely a different format. Well, that was my other question. I was going to ask Steve, have they actually made an effort, either the Amherst Council or the school committee, to better understand this issue? And are they better prepared this year? As Susie pointed out, there was a lot of people last year who were making a lot of comments, and a lot of things seemed logical to them, yet they didn't really understand the dynamics of this. And I'm just wondering if that's changed. Are they going to be more prepared? It sounds like not necessarily in time for Saturday.
No, that's the point of Saturday, is to get everybody up to speed and to discuss each town what their thinking is, their method will be, and then the second one will be all about the numbers. I'm sure Doug will show some numbers on Saturday, but it's not really open for discussion yet, because Amherst Town Council hasn't even told us what they want us to do yet.
So he's actually going to break down the difference between the 5-year rolling average under the regional agreement versus the statutory calculation, so that everybody understands some of the points that AJ laid out.
Yes, that's my thought.
All right, that's good. There was one other thing I did want to mention. Something Susie said, escaping me now, unfortunately, but okay. That's what I got.
AJ, you can always come back, George.
Thanks.
All right.
I will.
Did anybody else have their hand up before I add something? Good. Just want to make sure. Okay. So I'm just in some ways responding to one of Susie's points. I would very much support our town making a statement as part of Saturday's discussion that that we would oppose or not like to see any cuts in the overall regional budget, and that and just recognizing that the district has cut its budget for a couple of years in a row now, and our preference is that the separate and apart from the assessment method discussion, our preference is that there not be a reduction in the overall region's budget. But that's just me talking, so I don't know if other people have a reaction to that.
Yeah, George, and then Bob.
Well, I know I've said this in the past. It's been recognized by people, especially people who've been around for a while, that Shutesbury has always tried to move towards the statutory method without putting a burden on the budget, and doing it in such a way gradually so that we could minimize any impact on the budget. And a number of the budget cuts that have happened in the course of the 10 years, I don't think any of them were directly related to Shutesbury's position on the statutory. They were staffing cuts because Amherst was always the one providing the guidance on how high they could increase that line item, the regional line item. The question I forgot to ask earlier, the point I forgot to ask earlier, is just remind everyone, Susie made a comment about we want to recommend a method that all the towns can handle, and going to statutory, we need to make sure that it doesn't hurt all the other towns. But the reality is there is only one other town that has a material, and this method has a material impact on it. It's Amherst. They're the yin, we're the yang. It's always that case because of the way the formulas have worked. So if you look at the previous years and you look at the differences in all the methods, yeah, Leverett will complain. Last year, John Trickey did not complain, you looked at the differences between all the methods, and the dollars were 1,000, 2,000, maybe 5,000, but they weren't big numbers, and they were certainly numbers they can absorb. So I just wanted to make that point. And guess what? There was something else that came up in my mind, and I can't remember that either.
Well, you can come back again, George.
I probably will.
Bob,
Yeah, hi. Just to sort of add on to what George said, I think we should remember that last year, Amherst, as usual, put out a marker for what they were going to pay for the regional school for the fiscal year. And then we all had to orbit around them like the sun. And they said they weren't going to change it. And we insisted that it was discussed that if we insisted on our rights to go towards statutory, that we would affect cuts in the budget and we would be responsible for it. Well, we stuck to our guns, and Amherst changed their number. They moved on it, and they restored the cuts that they had originally sort of suggested. And so I think that the school budget was restored, and I think that it was funded, and Amherst did contribute more, and we got to 65. I think it was 65% we got last year. So I think that we have to remember that these guys down in Amherst, they know how to play the game, and they're probably going to do the same thing this year, come up with their ideas. And we have to be firm. And as George said, we're very close to being negligible between full statutory and
Bob, you're muted.
George.
AJ, if you want to cut in and respond to that.
Well, I just wanted to, because I think there's it's not totally accurate. I think our sort of recounting of last year's process. So I just wanted to kind of make sure we didn't forget, which is, it is true that from the first 4 towns meeting to the subsequent 4 towns meetings, the Amherst Town Council did state that their financial picture looked better, and so they increased the amount that they were willing to contribute to the school budget to, I think it was, I'm looking at my notes here, 2.1% increase over the FY21 assessment. Okay, so that part is absolutely what happened. But it also is true that when push came to shove at the region's budget hearing, there were 2 models that were in contention, 2 assessment models. It was 55% versus 65%. Okay, at that stage in the process, Amherst the town council had said, we are wedded to no more than a 2.1% increase in their assessment over the prior year. So because of that, the superintendent and Doug Slaughter presented 2 models, a 55 and a 65% model, and Amherst's assessment was identical in those 2 models. It was fixed at that 2.1% amount. So in effect, in order to be able to go to 65% versus 55%, they did reduce the overall operating budget again. And we talked about this at a previous meeting, like a recap meeting after. It wasn't a huge amount. It was $21,000. But I think it's important to remember that, because at times we tried to say that these are 2 completely independent decisions, and in theory that is true that they are, but in practice they've been connected in years past, and I'm not sure there's any reason for us to assume that it'll be any different in the future. So I think everything that we've talked about so far in this meeting, including the rationale for why we support the statutory method, I'm not suggesting any of that shouldn't be our position. I think it is. But I think in terms of our reasons why we may down the road need to be flexible, I think at the top of the list for me personally is if we do get into another situation like this, where the region is considering different assessment models, and the only way to get to a more favorable model, quote unquote favorable for Shutesbury, is to reduce the overall operating budget, well then personally, I would have some concern about that. So again, I don't say any of this to suggest that we not share our endorsement of the statutory method, or that we should, any of this should be discussed on Saturday, but I think it is something, it's important context for us to keep in mind as we discuss this issue over the next few months.
Okay, we've got 3 days to this meeting. I'm still not clear on that we have a clear agenda on what the school committee is looking to accomplish during that meeting, but we as Shutesbury representatives, meaning us from the finance committee, along with the select board and school committee, need to come up with a game plan for Saturday. George, you've got two hands going. You got the little hand in the corner, and you've got.
AJ wanted to respond to a conversation that was already started, so I yielded my position for that. But one thing I do want to ask about, I think we need to think about, and that is Amherst and Pelham are going to be moving their 6th graders into the regional school. And I'd like to know how that's going to affect the assessments when that happens.
That's a good point.
Should that be added to the bullets, the prompts for Saturday?
Well, let's hear what Steve says.
Pelham at this point is not sending their 6th graders. It's only going to be Amherst in the year 2023. And they're just going to, it'll be a rental agreement where Amherst will have to pony up a little tiny bit more for their classroom space for their 6th. It's 166 graders.
But it's going to affect the enrollments. So our enrollment is going to decrease, as are the other 3 towns, right?
No,
And that's going to be, that's a factor.
No, George, I think you misunderstand. What Steve said is they're renting space from the regional school. From the K through 6 is still going to be enrolled in that elementary school. It's just going to be renting space, physical space, right, Steve?
Yeah, this is Amherst's way of skirting the whole issue of the region in the agreement, because what will happen is if Shutesbury did want to send its 6th graders down to the middle school and either rent their own classroom or put their kids in with the Amherst students, Jackie would be responsible for both the students at the Shutesbury Elementary School and her 6th graders at the middle school building, just as there's going to be one 6th grade principal responsible for the 6th graders from Amherst. Each town would be responsible for its own 6th graders.
So that'd be the formula. Any town that decides to do it will just have to pay their rent. So the rent is revenue to the region. So that is going to have an impact on our assessment. So I'll be curious to hear what the rental agreement is. It's really why. Come on. I mean, what's the average cost per student? $15,000, throwing a number out there. It's in the teens of thousands. If they're sending, I don't know, 100 people, 100 students, seems to me
it's 160, but Amherst Elementary is still responsible for those students. It has nothing to do with the middle school at all, except for the space.
Right, it's just a space.
Right, but who's negotiating the rental rate?
Not teachers, just space.
You're not going to spend $15,000 a student for a classroom.
No, I understand that the number goes down. I get that, but all right, whatever.
If that's so, I'm building a school. If that's the way it's going to go.
Now, I'm not sure if these hands are, Bob, is your hand up or is that from before?
It's from before.
All right, so Susie.
So you asked, or somebody asked, what's our position going to be? I feel it's important not to go in with a position, but to answer the prompts. The one prompt that the prompts we haven't talked about is what constraints we have in our town. What do you see as longer term? we already know the prompt, what is your town's preferred method? The preferred method is statutory. They're not asking us, how fast do you need to get there? What's your proposal? So I think we also could think about answering the first two prompts and we're not going in with an negotiating position. That's not what this meeting's for. And the budget basics that he just sent out is information we should all read before we go there.
When you say first two prompts, what are you referring to,
There's
Susie?
there's 3 dots, the 3 black dots, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 clear dots in the prompts that Doug Slaughter sent out. And so the first prompt is, what financial constraints, concerns is your town operating under for the next couple of years? The second prompt is, what do you see as longer term problems? And he gives some examples. And the third prompt is, what is your town's preferred assessment method and why? And we've already identified statutory is our preferred method because of equity issues, and we've gone through that. So it's the other 2 ones we haven't talked about. And that's what we're being asked to come to the meeting with. And I think we've made it's now clear that this is an education meeting, because that's what we asked the central office to do. And we thought maybe they'd do something in the summer. Nope, this is it. This is the first part, is just making sure people understand other towns' issues as well as understand our own.
Yeah. Jim, and then Bob.
Yeah, who is going to speak for the town? Doug Slaughter says that they want one person to speak and all the rest of us will be sort of backing that person up. Who is that going to be? That's an important choice. Anyone thought about that?
Well, if it's FinCom, I think it should be Jim, but maybe it's somebody from the select board. I don't know. What do people think?
I think Jim, our chair, we should, I think he should speak, but maybe Rita has a different opinion.
Yeah, Rita, if you're answering the question or weighing in on this topic.
All I was going to say is that, the select board hasn't discussed this. So I think, I would pass it off to the finance committee. I'm here tonight, not representing the select board, but just because I was as a select board member, but not, we haven't talked about it. And I think there was some mention of perhaps getting together a half an hour before the meeting, but that isn't really enough time for somebody who's going to be presenting to get ready. So I would defer to the finance committee, given you've had this discussion tonight, to pick somebody to speak on behalf. And but we haven't, just as with the school committee, we haven't met as 3 committees together. I think we have to trust that you guys will represent the interests of the town.
Bob.
Yeah, so I just want to sort of extend that, which is that we are having this meeting as an educational forum for the benefit of the town council in Amherst. I think that's what I understand. So I think it's extremely important. I think that in answer to Susie's concern about the earlier bullet points, yeah, we have just saw the spreadsheet that presented by the treasurer, and we can just list those upcoming demands on our finances here. And we can also quote our tax rate. And we can then somehow elucidate the points that AJ articulated about the statutory method, because I really believe that some of these people from the town council need to understand this better, and they don't. They were, well, at least some of them were not understanding it last year, and there are new members on that council this year. So yeah, I think they do need a little bit of a description of what our opinion is about the statutory method and why we support it. And so again, I think it's a pretty easy thing to do in 10 minutes for someone, for Jim or anyone else on the FinCom, to elucidate those points about our financial condition, and about why we prefer the statutory method. I think that's all we need to do.
You know, you mentioned AJ's bullets. I think Susie also had some, and there might have been someone else that had one in there too.
Yep.
So I think we need to get some kind of a consensus on what we have for bullet points that we can all live with, and also with maybe Steve from a school committee perspective that you think can work, and same for you, Rita, from a select board position.
Select board won't be meeting before
Yeah,
Saturday.
no, I'm just saying, whatever if we come up with a list tonight, I think a list that we as a finance committee think works for Saturday's meeting, and that based on your experience with the select board and Steve with the school committee, that's something that you all can live with too, going into Saturday's meeting. I don't know how we capture what AJ communicated earlier. Did you write down these
Yeah,
items?
I have mine written
Same with
down.
you, Susie?
I wrote them down. I'll send them to you.
Yeah. I can email you when we wrap up.
So we need a draft of bullet points to go over before the meeting on Saturday, do we not?
Well, and
Yeah.
so the bullet points that say, so Bob brought up that the treasurer's spreadsheet covered some of it. Those are the areas that are in the second bullet with hollow dots. I wish everybody would just use numbers so we could say what line it's on. But anyways, Prop 2.5 limitations. We have a new, we do have a new tax rate, so we can say where we are. No, we
We do
don't.
not have a new tax rate.
Okay, we don't. I just remember they were talking. Okay, so how can we represent our tax rate as accurately as possible?
Last year's tax rate.
Until we get the new one, all we have is last year's.
So we'd say it was FY22's tax rate?
It's actually FY21. We're working on FY22s. We don't have FY22.
Right. And then other areas of the operating budget needing more resources. Maybe Jim would just look at that. I don't know. And then upcoming capital needs are part of the spreadsheet that Ryan made, and limited new growth. I guess we're still in that conundrum that raising the tax rate and our new growth are they still tied up with each other?
We still have limited our new growth won't be limited if we have industrial solar, but that's not even on the discussion right now. So, and new growth is limited, is still limited.
Very small, according to the assessor, according to Kevin.
Yeah, I think it was, it was much, because we had the first solar farm really assisted in new growth, was huge, but that's already there. We're gonna get the cell tower. They started the road this week, so there'll be some there. I'll ask Kevin for an answer to that question, if you would like.
We even have a couple knockdowns, which are negative growth. So I think what he estimated when he met before us recently was that we had a very marginal new growth for this coming year.
Right.
I think that's what we could say, honestly. We don't have to have the numbers.
And then we're presenting this while other towns present those facts for their towns. And so we can listen and see what our regional comrades, or whatever you want to call them, the other towns are facing. And so we'll hear it their realities relative to ours.
I think for that first prompt, we've got the tax rate. It's approaching $25 cap. That's an important
Well,
issue for the other.
it might not be approaching it, because one of the things Kevin told us was the values of the properties in town are rising, which means our tax rate is actually going to be going down.
Yeah,
which
I
means
thought we were
we're-
just gonna focus on fiscal year 21 tax rate for this, for discussion on Saturday.
Well, I mean, they want to put together the 23 budget.
Yeah, but the only data we have right now, the only number we have that's an
Okay.
accurate number is fiscal
All
year
right.
21.
But that doesn't mean you can't talk about the fact the valuation for the town is gone up, you know, $16 million, which will have a downgrading impact on the tax rate.
What's the likelihood our tax rate will be lower in fiscal 22 from
From
fiscal
what Kevin
20?
says, about 90%.
Yeah, I mean, we can't ignore that.
But we could also frame it as values are going up, the tax rate will go down. We also still have a relatively high tax rate, close to
Yeah.
25.
I think that's,
That's the point.
That's,
Oh,
it.
In the,
This,
in the context of other towns, it's still high, right?
Mhm.
And won't the actual bill go up though?
Depends
Depends on the
on your
budget.
valuation.
yeah, but the
I thought
average,
Kevin said that it would, but
the average tax bill per house in Shutesbury,
Will go
I
up.
think, yeah, we estimate that is going to increase, right?
But
Maybe not. No,
that
it
was-
might not.
That was erroneous. Because our budget didn't soar, the budget drives some of that picture.
Right.
And so what I would like to get clarification from Kevin, but not tonight. It's some people's tax bills will go up if their valuations go up more dramatically.
Yeah, we got to talk about the town as a
And
whole.
other people's bills, if their valuations don't go up and the tax rate goes down, they'll get a
Well,
decrease.
all else keep staying constant. If only assessed values go up, there's no impact on tax bills. There's no impact on a tax bill. All else staying the same.
No,
except
If
no, it goes down.
assessments,
The impact is it goes down. The
the
average
tax
bill
rate,
goes
the
down.
tax rate goes down, but the bill stays the same.
Not if the values increase and the budget stays the same.
then
Huh?
Well, how much did our budget increase from year to year?
2.5% is what we build into our budgeting process every year.
Yeah.
That is not what we actually budget. I mean,
Right,
that's on the form, but
Right.
that's not what we actually
I
budget.
understand, but what did we do last year? We had, what, 1% increase in our budget?
I think it was less.
No,
It
it
was
was
like
minus 1 point, it was minus
flat.
0.9 or 19.
Yeah,
Right,
it was flat.
right. So we usually have sent out guidelines for level services budget, which means we absorb some costs to go up and we hope that some costs go down. But level services budget and I have to say anecdotally, at least, just my observation, the property values have gone up much quicker in Amherst and Leverett and Pelham than they have here. So I
It's
think
because we work hard at it.
that we just got to keep those snowmobiles and those junk cars in the front yard and keep things under control. But
Remember-
my observation is really that Amherst they've already estimated $400 average household tax increase next year.
Right.
Without all these extraordinary capital projects that they haven't really approved yet, you know.
Yeah, but the average tax bill going up isn't because of overall assessments going up. If
It's not because
overall,
of assessments, right?
Either they have their revenue sources, there's other revenue sources that have gone down, or their expenses have gone up, or some combination. And that's what's driving the higher tax bill. It's not driven by assessments.
Right. No, I'm not saying it's driven by assessments. I'm saying that that tax bill is going up, certainly, and their tax rate is going down.
Yeah, right.
Can we get back to Four Towns meeting? Because Jim needs bullets for
Well,
for
yeah, and the
meeting. So
capital
we-
piece.
yeah.
I was gonna say, in the capital piece, we should be listing all the capital projects. We need to let them know that we're dealing with a very expensive roof. We have the culvert project, the
Yeah, I think we just,
library,
yeah.
which I think we really need to lay that on thick because there is a lot there.
Yeah,
And we're gonna have to be able to afford that.
Yeah, we hit the big ones, the culvert, the roof, the big ones.
Yeah, just don't, make sure that they get on that list. It's,
Yeah.
I think our tax rate is probably the highest in the region as well. I'm not
But-
sure. I think that it is.
compared to the
anymore.
region, Compared to the
It
region,
was.
Yeah.
we have the lowest single tax bill of all 4 towns in the region. Amherst, the average taxpayer pays $2,000 more than we do. Pelham, it's like 1,000. Leverett, it's like 600. Those are round numbers and maybe a little stale, but it's always been that case.
But George,
So we can talk about tax rates, but
the problem was the tax rate, and I think we have the highest tax rate. So,
yeah, but I don't think people care about the tax rate. The finance
that was
committees
the
know that
problem.
the tax
Yeah,
rate
it's-
doesn't mean anything.
Let's focus on, we need to focus on, get through a Saturday meeting. I think, Susie, your hand is up?
One thing is that when we present that we have, a possible $900,000 capital project schedule, that would be tiny in Amherst. So I think somehow we have to present the numbers relative to our budget
Yeah.
or relative to our town, not
That's a
just
good
a
point.
flat number. Otherwise, we'll look kind of silly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an important qualifier for sure.
what was the total, 1.3 million or something in his spreadsheet?
I think it was 983K.
With the borrowing.
That's after,
Borrowing, right.
So I think the total before that was an additional 500,000 or something, so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
That's what's before us, the potential down the road in a short distance.
but I think Susie, your point's a good one that, we're talking about total capital commitment somewhere
Hmm.
in the ballpark of like 20% of our budget, right? I mean,
Yeah.
That's the important point, I think. What about the point about how, just our, not having any real commercial revenue sources? Like, that's an important piece of context for that's different for at least one one of the other towns.
Well, the impact, that's what drives our tax rate to where it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we want to talk about a tax rate, that's part of why our tax rate's where it is. We don't have commercial.
And we would expect Leverett and Pelham to say the same thing, and we'd
Yeah.
want to hear it from them.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then it seems like we do have to say something about, I don't know exactly how to put it, but just, that we do have a significant segment of our population that's struggling with just affordability of their property taxes. And it's obviously, I mean, that's just an important piece of information that, we are constantly hearing and talking about in our meetings. And we have to have some way of just like, I'm sure the other towns will probably say something similar, but, again, like, as Susie said, our job is to tell the story of what are the factors that influence our town. And that's certainly an important one.
I think it's important to note that they do attend annual town meeting. And they are vocal about,
Yeah.
the impact of our property taxes on their lives.
Mhm.
And I looked today up on the DLS site for, what is this called? Well, it's a graph. Oh, it's the average single family tax bill. And I put Amherst, Leverett, Pelham, and Shutesbury together. And there's an interesting number called average tax bill as a percentage of income. And these are the 2021 numbers. In Amherst, it's 41.90%. Well, no, average tax bill as a percentage of the income is 41.90. In Leverett, it's 13.40. In Pelham, it's 17.93, and in Shutesbury, it's 21.10. So to AJ's point, Amherst actually has the highest, and then
Yeah, but Susie, that includes all the students, I think. I think,
That does.
I
Yeah.
don't
It's
know.
yeah,
It does.
yeah,
Well, that's a
That's whack
question.
number.
yeah.
But their number is a lot higher.
Yeah, they have a lot of students without income.
Yeah, we need the denominator there.
But
Yeah.
it's single family tax bills as a percentage of value.
Yes,
The rental units, the buildings, they're not in this number. It's just single families.
Oh, really, George?
That's what
So
it says
anyway-
right on the heading. I'm looking at the same
Yeah,
report.
but aren't you a single family if you're living in an apartment by yourself? I mean, aren't you a family?
You're
well, they
taxing the
actually-
apartment building. You're not taxing a single family home.
No, they're
Right.
talking about individual per capita income, family income. That's what
No,
Susie,
single family tax bill is a percentage of the, Susie, what you quoted is you said 2.18 for Amherst, 2.14 for Pelham, 1.97 Leverett, and 2.26 for Shutesbury. Were those the numbers?
No, I was looking at you're looking at the columns. I'm looking at the next to last column beside rank.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was looking.
So anyways, this is an interesting page. If we want to talk, we don't really have to take responsibility or care about the other towns. We're going to hear them present their information. But what I'm saying is we may or may not be the highest or lowest in any category. But like AJ said, we have these concerns. But I think you might be interested if you want to see some numbers to compare concerns. But in fact, the towns will have to represent their concerns.
Okay, we have our list.
right?
We have our tax rate. We've got our capital needs, upcoming capital needs. We've got limited new growth. We talked earlier, this is one of AJ's statutory, that the state has defined that as the most fair, the fairest, and it's also the biggest by far in the state as far as how other communities, municipalities work. We've talked about 5-year statutory to reduce volatility. We talked about our town people continue. We have a town people that are struggling paying tax bills. So that's what I've captured. I'm sure I'm missing a few.
Another thing
Bob,
you can. Oh,
just-
go ahead.
Sorry, just. So-
Could you
so-
turn your hand on? You got a hand and a hand going there, Bob. So just
Over 72%, over 70% of the communities in the state use the statutory method. I think you could say that.
yeah.
And so it's not some revolutionary thing. And as AJ pointed out, it's also a compromise because it combines the two methods, the per student method and the method based on equity of income.
So Bob, that's over 70% of regional districts
Right,
utilize
right.
statutory.
So otherwise, statutory would be.
yeah.
necessary, right.
And Jim, can we also just for the answer to the question, what is your town's preferred assessment method? Can we make sure that we say statutory with a 5-year rolling average? Because that's been our town's position for at least the last few years, and it is technically different than the statutory method.
Yeah, that's what really is
It's an alternative
Doug
method.
Slaughter's last bullet is that's his, that's important. That's important that we capture that.
Good.
What are we missing?
I have one more point, and that education is a significant proportion of our budget. It's a less percentage of some of those other towns' total budgets. I can come up with the numbers. I don't have them right in front of me, but Shutesbury, can't remember if we were tied with Pelham or not. But anyways, just in terms of raw percentages, Amherst spends less of a percentage of their total budget on education. They have some other needs. They need to represent those other needs, but I think we.
They also have other revenue sources.
Yeah, I think we should, but I think we should present what percentage of our budget goes into education.
It's
Yeah, that's a good
60%.
point, yeah.
It's 60% when you look at the two lines, the lines for education, but there's also indirect costs, health insurance,
Right, but
some of
that's,
the benefits.
and that's
So
true with everybody's, that health wasn't located in, oh, Becky's saying no.
No, I think Pelham because Amherst does the Pelham books. So their health insurance is included in their school, I believe. Their school lines. Ours is not. Ours is in our other line.
Other
Yep.
line, right.
Susie,
we-
did you say you had comparison data so that we can say that our share is higher than other
I-
communities?
We did that when we did our subcommittee on regional.
Okay, yeah,
And so I can go look that up. But I
Okay,
don't have it
great.
right now. I'll send it to Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important. If there is such data, that we should make sure it's up to date and accurate before we
And
make
and
that
when we're
point.
talking, when we're talking about the regional assessment, and we're talking about our preferred method is the 5-year rolling average of the statutory method, that's the answer, not we want to go to 85% this year, or we want to go to some other percentage. The answer is that's our preferred method.
Yeah, I guess the only question I have along that lines is, especially the people from Amherst, they're all mostly new, right? They don't have a lot of the history as much maybe as the representatives from the other towns. Does that sound right? Is
That's
there a
the
need
case
to,
last year.
is there a need to highlight that there's been good progress made going towards statutory? That we've gone from really 0% statutory some years ago, and that we've gotten to 65% recently, and that we see the need to continue that progress towards statutory. So I guess that's a question. Do we want to put in a little history about how there's been progress and how it needs to continue?
Yes, I think we do. We should.
I had the impression somewhere that Slaughter was going to do some of this historical storytelling here, right?
Well, if we get to the point where we're making our
Yeah,
presentation,
but if he
and
hasn't,
that has already happened, then we can
Yeah.
scale that back. But if that's not the case and he hasn't spoken yet, then we should just point out to everybody that we have been on this path since 2016.
Yeah. Steve?
So the answer is yes. I went through that little PowerPoint, and it's gonna start with the budget, the revenues and the expenses, and he's gonna run through where all the revenues come from, and then he's gonna run through the expenses and where it all goes, and then he's gonna do the assessment method, the history of the region, and then break it down by the statutory and the regional assessment.
Steve, how do we get a
Yes.
copy of that?
I tried to send it to Becky just a little while ago through my wife's email. And I don't know if
Oh,
she
you
got it
did?
or
I
not.
haven't checked it. I'll check that.
It'll be Little Tulipal.
That'd be really
Okay.
nice for all of us to have that.
It would be.
And
No,
I'll try it again now. If you guys are done with me, I'll do that now.
That's not the budget basics PowerPoint, that's something
No,
else.
something
yeah, that's
else.
just, the budget basics is just more like a background or informational type of a thing.
Yeah,
That really doesn't talk about the things that Steve was just talking about.
Steve, I don't have any email yet. Oh, wait. I got it. Sorry. That's Lily Tulip. Sorry. Found it. Wonderful.
Becky, can you send that to the select board too?
Yeah, I did that with the other one too, Rita,
Yeah.
and the school committee.
Thank you.
Oh, look, it's 9 o'clock.
And we started at 7. Okay, that's right.
Are you asked, because the one that I have, it's school budgeting basics and facts. Is that what you saw too?
We got that.
I think so,
Becky
yeah.
sent that to
Well,
us.
that's what we'll be working off of on Saturday.
Oh, that's all? Okay, that doesn't have anything about,
It does mention something about highlighted colors. Regional specific items will be highlighted in light blue and municipal specific items in light orange. I don't know what this, I'm just looking at the cover page of it, the beginning page, so I haven't read the whole thing.
Yeah, so what Steve just sent me, when I opened it up, it's what I've already sent you guys.
The basics.
The
Yes.
basics.
Yep.
The basics is attached below, but he also has a link. But the only thing in the link that comes up that I see. I will talk to the region tomorrow and make sure we have all materials and get them out to you if there's something amiss.
Yeah, because my copy has all the links and the one I sent, I guess, doesn't have any of them.
It does, no, I think it, Susie, the copy you got has links, doesn't it?
Let me go and look again.
Mine has links. I'm
Oh,
looking at the links. And I just clicked on one and I got an Excel spreadsheet that opened up.
I'm going to the bottom.
Yeah. The
100
first
pages
page,
later.
chapter 70 has two. Yeah, they have active links, I believe.
Oh, is that the highlighted words are active links?
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, they all start with HTTPS.
Oh, I see them now. They're in the document. I thought you meant
Yes.
like at the end.
Ah,
Okay.
okay.
There's-
but-
They're sprinkled throughout the document and they go to like DOR and hopefully,
Okay, yep.
All of them are DOR, Becky. Every single one I've seen is all going to DOE Mass.
okay.
So they're all just referencing information that's already out there. In other words, it doesn't look like they've attached, well, we'll find out when we all have time to look at it, but it doesn't look like they've attached any budget schedules or
Right.
any summary draft budget information or anything of that nature.
No, everything's still wide open, it appears.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is good. If we're focusing on the method, and we have an opportunity to tell everybody why we support our method, that's good. And, you know, the only thing I would say about that is one of the things that people love to bring up, and members of the council brought it up last year, and that is that the regional assessment uses a 5-year rolling average of percentages, and that's the way we've been doing it since 1955. What's wrong with that? That's really good. That makes sense. And that's something we need to be able to answer. When they say that, I hope that we can answer that question for them, because that did make sense from 1955 to 1995. But when Chapter 70 came in, it no longer made sense. And so we need to let them know that. And the reason it went on as long as it did, since 1993, 94, 95 to now, is because we've been kicking this around the whole time and we've never really understood it or come to a great consensus. This has been an issue pretty much since Chapter 70 has started, and it's created headaches for all the various towns at one point or another. So I think we hopefully will have an opportunity to answer that question if somebody throws that out there.
Okay, are we all set for Saturday? Was there a plan, Becky, to combine our three groups, get together in advance of the meeting, or are we?
The
just
only
gonna-
possible, what Rita had mentioned is whether or not you want to do a Zoom meeting ahead of the meeting at 8:30. I need to set that up tonight if you guys all want to do that.
What does everybody think?
I think
At
it's
8:30?
a listening meeting, not a strategizing meeting.
Okay,
But I think we should meet, because otherwise the select board would not have heard what the finance committee is planning on presenting. So I think just in advance of the regional meeting, we should understand what's going to be presented.
Maybe he can send that to you in the points he draws up in response to the prompts.
What's wrong with us meeting 8:30 before the meeting, which is.
Yeah, I think.
yeah, and it gives the select board members and the school committee members a chance to make sure they
Yeah.
understand
Yes.
and can ask questions.
Yes,
Sounds good.
Okay, so
I think.
Becky, can we get something we can set up to meet all three of us, all three groups, committees, meet at 8:30?
What time would you like? 8:15?
I think 8:30 is fine.
Okay,
Great.
And that document be circulated in advance, so that everybody has a chance to take a look at it, and then if they have any questions, we'll cover that at 8:30.
Okay, I can send something out with bullets. And if anybody else has additional inputs, just forward them along.
Excellent.
So I'll try to get that, Rita and Steve, I'll try to get that out sometime tomorrow. So you guys have a day or so to digest.
Okay,
All right,
great, thank you.
okay. Are we done with the school? It's.
I'm leaving.
Good
Good night,
idea.
everybody.
Bye.
Yep, I'm not sure how much bandwidth everybody has, but we had on the agenda. I found my agenda away.
We
There it
can
is.
skip the expense report.
Yeah, unless somebody saw something on the expense report that Becky sent us most recently, which was about a week and a half ago. We can move past the expense report.
Right.
Did anybody see something that they want to raise or bring up?
No.
I see a bunch of no's. Okay. Committee updates, is there anything that feel we want to bring up tonight regarding committee? Other committees?
Capital planning, we met and we had a preliminary sort of first meeting. We didn't do anything. We're going to be sending out the requests, the documents for people to make their requests, I should say. And so we won't be able to evaluate those until our next meeting, which is the 3rd of December, right, AJ?
Yeah, so the deadline for departments is November 30th for submitting the capital request forms.
December 3rd.
December 3rd, and our meeting's the 7th or something like that.
Oh, sorry, yeah, excuse me, yeah.
December 3rd?
Is
Yeah.
the deadline
Friday.
to return.
That's right, that's the deadline for departments. And then,
Okay, that's a Friday. So you that's just when you've asked for the responses, the capital
Yes.
requests.
yes, and then then capital planning is meeting on the 6th to discuss those requests.
So
Okay,
I think if the finance committee has any big capital requests for a FinCom special office building or something, sure, just get it in there.
with all this new cash we have, Bob, is that what you're thinking? We gotta spend this new cash
Yeah.
that we found tonight?
Must be
Or
something, a
you might
calculator or
wanna-
something.
You might want to seriously think about going to more state FinCom events and think through how much that might cost if they actually are in person.
There's an in-person meeting this spring, sponsored by the same outfit that did that online. And it's gonna be a morning and it's gonna cost money. And it's gonna, if we all wanted to, or some of us wanted to attend, it would cost.
Is that the one at the Heinz Center?
It's in the spring, I think it's in April or maybe March.
That's the one at the Heinz Center in Boston?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
include mileage and reimbursement in that calculation.
Any other committees, school or,
School meets tomorrow night.
okay, personnel board, anything?
Just one minor thing. Becky had mentioned that the tax collector was hoping to hire a part-time assistant, and Ryan, our treasurer, was going to be approached, and he was pretty positive. He met with the personnel board, as did Ellen McKay, our tax collector, and he is very interested in doing it, and we're working out what the budget impact will be and how much do we have in the budget for fiscal 22. Becky, I think you were going to get that information.
So-
for us.
So I have a question. At one point last year, we had a budget in there of $4,400 that was cut in half for this fiscal year.
Mhm.
Well, we need $4,400 this year.
So that 2,200 from last year did not roll into this line to double it.
I think that's what happened. It wasn't a carryover.
So the personnel board will have to talk about this. We're meeting tomorrow night, and we'll let you
Well,
guys know.
actually, the select board has already appointed Ryan. So, what the personnel board had already said, wasn't it, George, that we could, that we would need to go to the finance committee to help finance it?
Yeah, can we, so do we know what that calculation is? How much we are short based on when he'll start?
I think it was coming out to being, we had about a $50
$3,800.
difference.
Oh, is that it?
It was very tight. It was 4,300.
I thought we came up with like $3,800, a little less than that as the total cost of FY '22. And the budget is 2,200. That's my recollection. We can look at it tomorrow night.
Will this come as a formal request, do you think, in a dollar amount? Or
It
is
will
this-
have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had asked, because it would have fit, we were using estimates on ours. The $4,400 by my calculation needs to be restored to give sufficient, just rudimentary time for him to put in training work and 3 weeks of potential coverage in the next 7 months.
So a dollar amount will come as a request as soon as that can get nailed down.
Well, unfortunately, yeah, and that's unfortunate because we really needed the full 4,400 to make this work, but whatever. We'll wait for another 2 weeks.
Well, and the fact of the matter, yeah,
Can draw.
he
on-
could start working. We have enough room to work, but we would have to, he'd have to stop at some point, which is of course not what we want. So let's talk about it tomorrow, Becky. We can make the calculation and hopefully have a number for the next meeting.
Okay, Jim, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. Becky, do we have any idea when we will know how much infrastructure money, specifically in this case for broadband, might become available now that the Congress has passed that? When will we get an idea about how much Shutesbury will be able to spend? Because we have quite a shopping list.
I think the MLP shopping list will have to be evaluated in conjunction with all other town requests.
So we would need to get you that information about what, and this is over.
Right, but it wouldn't, yeah, because it's we're gonna have to establish priorities, because the infrastructure request for the heating system is very significant to start with. And there are other town requests that have to be sorted through. So if the MLP would like to put forward a request so that it could be evaluated.
Well, I thought that the broadband, that the broadband or fiber infrastructure money was like, there was a specific amount for that. And it was really in its own little world, just like, for roads and bridges and everything else are in their own little world. So wouldn't we see a specific amount that is going to be allocated
Hopefully
to
we
each?
will. Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully we
All right.
will. But it would be helpful to know what you're looking for too, in case.
Okay. And it's good for the,
outside of that pocket.
and this money is good for the next, in other words, they're expecting this to be spent over the next 4 to 5 years, as I recall. Does that sound right to you?
Mhm.
No, in other words, there's because infrastructure building takes time. And so
Right.
we can't all use it up in 1 year. But
No,
4 to 5 years, does that sound right?
I know the ARPA money has 3 years, and I think the infrastructure has 4 or 5. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's 4 or 5.
4 or 5, okay.
Yeah. But the more information you can share, and I'll try to, I haven't seen any definitive information allocated to Shutesbury for that purpose.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
I'll be on the lookout. Thank you.
Anything else on committees? Reports. Okay, the only last item we had on our agenda is schedule the next meeting. I'm looking at December 1st, 2 Wednesdays from now. Does that work at 6:30?
Yes. Here's our, December 1st, we have highway police listed on our.
Yeah, and that's a question I had. So Becky, they should be good. The highway and police should be ready for our meeting in 2 weeks.
Yeah. I know the police have already started working on it, and yeah, she's pretty close to finished.
Okay, so we'll be ready to spend time with Tim and Kristen on at our next meeting.
Yeah.
Becky, have you accumulated a lot of budgets from different departments?
I'm sorry.
Have you accumulated a lot of
Not as
budget
many as
requests?
usual. I'm gonna have to put another request out.
What was our deadline generally? Our theoretical deadline?
The one we put in our letter, we had a specific one, didn't we?
Yeah, what is it? I don't have a copy of the letter in front of me. I have the schedule, but I don't have the letter.
It's past whatever it is.
I think, yeah.
Not much.
Wasn't it at the end of October?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So did any of you guys watch that recording that I,
End of October.
Yeah, so we should be able, we should have should we all be able to get a copy of what Tim and Kristen have in advance of our next meeting?
Kristen asked me to explain to you that she'll have one hopefully by next week, the week, I should be able to get it out a few days early. Hopefully before Thanksgiving, but hers is not complete. She's been overwhelmed with all the extra police study group meetings that are have been bi-weekly of late. And but she'll have it ready a week before the meeting. Like I said, she began. And Tim just officially came back to work about 5 days ago. So I'll check in on him. I haven't seen his yet either.
When we were talking about committee reports, can we get a committee report about what's going on with the police study committee? I mean, is there a sunset coming in sight on that? And are we going to have information and be able to budget for FY23?
Yes. To the last question. We've been praying for the sun to set. Feel like we wake up and it's morning every day. It's been yeah, Susie is the representative. I don't want to overstep.
Yeah, so it seems a bit muddled. They don't have the survey designed yet. They want to find out citizen understanding and feelings, and then they have been looking at what the general models were, and they haven't prioritized those yet either. So I think when I'm at the next meeting, I will mention that the FY23 budget will be impacted by a decision, and to not decide would also be an impact. So there we go.
Becky, I'm also on that committee.
I apologize, Melody. I really.
So for purpose of the police budget, will their first go through be more along the lines of the current alignment, the way we're currently operating?
Yeah.
So it's more of a tentative budget until this committee is complete and the select board buys into some approach. It's going to be a tentative budget, right? What is there a timeline for those steps when the committee completes its work and presents to the select board, and then the select board takes a decision?
Becky made an effort to get people to complete the survey draft and get that out there, and then begin to move along. And there's a lot of people new to committee work, and they couldn't imagine coming up with those timelines. So hard to tell where this will go.
Yeah, Bob,
Yeah, is it practical to put Kristen off and submit and not switch around with some other department for the 1st of December? If there's so many things in the air, I mean.
She'll have it ready. Like I said, I've already gone through the first draft with her, so, by the beginning of next week, before Thanksgiving, she'll get it out to everyone.
yeah,
I'll
but
get
isn't there a significant possibility it could look very different depending on the outcome of the committee and what the select board comes up with? Or no?
Only if we eliminate the police department.
Well, if we go for some of the other models, there might be some change, but I don't think we can anticipate that right now. So we'll accept her proposal and we'll have to play it by ear, which is kind of something towns do.
Yeah, but I guess that goes to Bob's point. If we think we'll have a more accurate view, let's say a month from now, why not wait for a month from now and then, move somebody else up?
We're not talking a
going-
month.
Yeah.
We're not talking a month. We'll be lucky February or March, I
We'll do
think.
what we always do.
Melody, what's your feeling? Melody is also on the committee.
I agree with Becky. I think it's been a bit glacial.
Okay. Anything else?
I have one off the wall question. It's something that's completely different from anything we've been talking about. Really, you're not even non-finance, but it's administrative. It's a open meeting law question. And that is, I notice, and I've known this for a long time. I should have asked this question a long time ago. These meetings are recorded. And so our process will be to review AJ's minutes. We'll make edits, amendments, and we'll approve the minutes. What happens to these recordings?
They get posted on the website.
When?
When I get it done, pretty much. Well, when I get it to Grace, who posts it, we often have requests the next morning. We frequently have a request for these copies of these videos.
I was just thinking, we're preparing a strategy for the regional school committee and for the regional for town meeting. And I don't think that we had any conversations here that I would be a problem if they had heard about it prior to. But it seems to me sometimes we have conversations in our meetings that you don't necessarily want to be out in the public immediately. And it's the same thing with the minutes. We don't publish our minutes until they've been approved. I don't think it's an issue here, but I'm just thinking in the future, maybe the next town meeting, when we want to strategize, we might not want to be so quick on getting this out here. Yes, we have to do it, and certainly we will. This committee wants to be transparent. We're open about everything. We debate everything, and that's fine. But I just have something to think about. I don't know what our requirements are, but to me, if we could delay it at least till after Saturday, and in some circumstances, it's to our benefit from a negotiating point of view, not to always have our conversations out there in the public. People can hear the pros and the cons. And when we're arguing the cons of something, for us, it's a pro for somebody else. And they're thinking, oh, that's a good point, So just don't want to give things away sometimes when we're negotiating with the towns.
But don't we have to?
Yeah, we do.
We have to come up with a strategy. We have to go through different scenarios, and we can't really do that without open meeting laws, can we?
No, we can't. An open meeting law actually demands that we are transparent.
I understand that, and I'm not saying we shouldn't be transparent.
Open
What I'm
meeting law
saying is
really
that-
doesn't require us to videotape.
Right.
We're one of the only towns that are doing it around
Why?
us.
Why do
If
we
you
do it?
wanted to get Pelham's videotapes, you wouldn't find any.
So
Lever,
what-
Spotty, it would be dependent on the department. So, but we have set up this procedure and, I don't often, I might not get them up till Saturday because, I'm gonna be till like midnight trying to get the second 8:30 meeting posted because I just finished the 9 o'clock and now I have to do a separate one that will be on Zoom. So I'm just one person and I can't get to all the things that are asked of me in a given day. So they don't always get put up unless somebody asks, and then we try to get them moved along faster.
Well, we want to be consistent. in how we do
Does
this.
it fall under executive session for negotiations at all?
I think it's a hard sell, especially when you're talking about an educational meeting. At some point it could be, but I think that would be one way, George, to delay it, because we don't record executive session at all.
I think, I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at that recording that I was talking about with the lawyers, the second session. But he made some the lawyer that was talking about open meeting law, made some extremely interesting points and made a very coherent description of what the law is. And one of the things he pointed out, which I thought was very interesting, is when you have this little note in your agenda, any other business that the chair entertains with, he said it's completely illegal to say that. You have to say what you're going to be talking about. And if somebody introduces a subject that you didn't anticipate,
Table it.
you have to schedule it for the next meeting after putting it as an agenda item on that meeting, or you're breaking the law. It's interesting, but it makes sense.
But it's debated. That's, that is definitely an issue Donna McNichol would not agree on. And our town council has advised us differently.
Yeah, and we have a standing item on our agenda, FinCom agenda, that's listed as other items not anticipated by the chair of the committee.
Well, this guy worked for the state of Massachusetts, so,
Well,
Becky's point about the executive session, I wouldn't want to do an executive session because we do want the members of our community to participate in these conversations. There are a number of people who have been active in these conversations and would want to be in these conversations. So I understand what you're saying, Becky, but I just, if we're talking transparency, who and why is this decision? Who made the decision and why that we should record our meetings? Is that the select board is mandating that for us? Because
I believe in
me-
the first the KP law analysis, and Susie hopefully will remember better, made that suggestion to be transparent to the public, that this would be the way to go. We have hit problems with capacity to store all these recordings. I currently have, we pay a monthly fee to Zoom. So all the recordings are I think for a given amount of time, about a year, they will be stored in the cloud if we don't run out of space.
if we go to in-person meetings, are we going to record our meetings?
If we go to hybrid meetings, which is the next step the select board is going to, we will continue recording meetings.
And hybrid is going to be the standard for the future?
It will be the standard for the rest of this year, and then we'll find out what the law dictates.
Because it just seems to me, if it wasn't, it's, I'm waking up the baby. If it wasn't for COVID, this wouldn't be an issue. And
right.
I don't like it. We say a lot of things, and I've seen
No.
on Shutesbury Next Door, somebody takes a little clip of something we said, and that becomes fact. When the reality is, the minutes are the facts that we want, that we communicate.
Yeah, and to George's point, I guess, Becky, did you say that most of the towns around here do not do recordings?
Yeah,
No.
Food for thought. I gotta go.
We
Yeah.
could make this, we could bring this to the select board because they are part of the decider race. So
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I agree.
All right.
thank you,
George?
Melanie.
Carver, night aside.
Bob,
Roger, aye.
where was I?
Remember,
Ashu, aye.
Mosher, aye.
Walt and I. You all have a lovely Thanksgiving.
See you Saturday.
You
See
too.
you Saturday.
Yeah, see you Saturday.
Oh, shoot. We got Saturday.
Tim, you're the spokesperson.
I forgot all about it. Yeah.
All right, good night.
Take care.